Back at the beginning of June, I took a little solo weekend trip to Porto with just my Contax G1 to document the travels and exploration of a brand new city. The trip was designed to be a reset from working every day to going into working out in the US for a couple of months. I'd planned nothing and I simply wanted the trip to be a relaxing one, exploring a new culture, its history, its cuisine, and its photographic potential. But the trip actually ended up being quite a conscious photographic exercise to work on composition, using light, colour and a subjective lens to really document my experience of exploring the city of Porto. Today I'm going to share over 100 images that I captured throughout that trip. As I said, for this trip I was armed with just my Contax G1 and the only lens that I also currently own for the camera, which is the 28mm f2.8, which is a lens that I've gotten used to using and thoroughly love using as an everyday walk-around focal length. Throughout the trip I had some pretty mixed weather. There was some beautiful sunny weather on some days and some days were pretty cloudy and the sun didn't really come out at all. But what that did allow me to do is capture the amazing view from my little apartment that I was renting in multiple different lighting scenarios from a few different angles. I'll dot these pictures throughout the videos so that they're not too monotonous one after the other, but it is pretty interesting to see how different times of day and different weather can drastically affect the exact same image. I've got a lot of images to share in this video, so let's take a quick look at some before we get into it.
On that day when the sidewalk ends and my feet find those celestial shores, when the things of earth are strangely dim and my sorrows are no more. And on that day when the train rolls in and St. Peter opens wide the door, he will take my coat singing welcome son, my dirty shoes will stain heaven's floor. Just a few more steps and I'll be home, I'll be home. Just a few days left and I'll be home, I'll be home. Just a few more steps. And on that day when the sparrows fly and the great fields turn the streets of gold, I will see my maker face to face as I check in my load.
The reason that I think this trip was such a useful trip for me was because of how much I actually really consciously began to think about the composition of my images. When I then came to edit them and look through them on my computer when I got the scans back at home, these conscious decisions actually began to really stand out to me, so much so that I think I could actually group the images that I took into a few different categories based on how I composed them and what I was thinking about when pressing that shutter. One of these, which I would argue are actually some of the less good images that I got from the trip, which I'm not going to focus on too much. These are the sort of touristy, documentarian images just reacting to things happening on the streets. These are simple images focusing on people, landmarks, on viewpoints which I liked. They're documenting the trip, which is what I wanted to do. They're documenting the experience so that I could show friends and families of pictures of sites that I've seen. They're not the most inspiring images in the world, nor are they the type that I would get prints of or particularly learn from, but I do think that there is something to be said about just capturing images in the moment that show off the place without thinking too much about what is going into that image.
You got me excited in 1,000 little ways. Colors feeling brighter, getting better every day. You got me feeling good. Oh, you got me feeling good. Oh, you got me feeling good. Oh, you got me feeling good. this I gotta share, 'cause this is where it starts. You got me feeling good. Oh, you got me feeling good. Oh, you got me feeling good. Oh, you got me feeling good.
The second group or category based on composition was my conscious choice to frame things based on light in the image. This is perhaps the most common conscious choice that I make when I'm out photographing. I always prefer sunny days because I like to photograph big sweeping shadows and rays of light and just interesting pockets of light, and this trip to Porto was no different. I think if you watch some of my previous videos, you'll see that when I'm out on the street, I tend to focus on light. I visited some museums and the stock exchange in Porto, which had some really interesting walk-through tours. The interplay between the dark interiors and the bright light shining in through windows and doors and ceilings made for some really interesting compositions, which I intentionally tried to capture because of that interesting light. The third category of composition which I was actively thinking about was framing viewpoints within a natural frame. Sometimes that was as simple as shooting through a tube which was designed to show off a church. Other times it was using foliage in a beautiful park, framing the view of the city across the river in the background. I also consciously framed views through windows and reflections in mirrors, as well as using some wires to frame a single person walking across a bridge. These were all views that I'd seen throughout my trip, but that I wanted to find interesting and different ways to compose in order to bring a little bit of extra excitement and something different to the images out of the ordinary everyday view that I was seeing them in. And the final category and style of composition that I was really focusing on during this trip, I'm going to call the more traditional means of composition, focusing on symmetry and the rule of thirds. The areas that I visited in Porto had a lot of opportunities for symmetrical images or center composed images that had a real balance to the overall composition, but also presented me with a lot of opportunity to place my subject on an intersection of lines when considering the rule of thirds, allowing the rest of the image to give context and background to the subject which I was depicting in the photograph.
And soon we'll all be history.
It's also worth noting that a lot of the time I combined these categories and conscious decisions together. Sometimes using a natural frame, I was able to get a perfectly symmetrical or balanced composition, or place that frame on a third line, or a really nice interplay between light and dark may have been in the center of a symmetrical image. I found that a trip like this really allowed me to zero in on what I was composing and to slow down and make really conscious and intentional decisions with my compositions in order to get the very best images that I could out of the trip. Now, of course, I still took a lot of bad and poorly composed images on this trip. Not every photo you create is going to come out perfect, and I've shared a lot of imperfect images that I wouldn't take anywhere other than this video. But I can assure you that if you start focusing on these aspects of composition that I've mentioned in this video, your photography will begin to get more intentional and you'll make more purposeful decisions regarding the compositions of your images. And I'd be willing to bet that you'd be happier with the results that you get when you think about these things. So I think this was a really super helpful trip for me. I hope that you enjoyed it. That is all for this video. Feel free to leave a like or a comment down below, letting me know your thoughts. And of course, you can always subscribe if you do want to see the next video from me. Stay safe, everyone. Stay happy. And I'll see you in the next one.